What's up you guys, it's 2Bricks and I'm back with the first update to the Micro Fleet series for 2023, and this is a pretty significant one because firstly, as you can see, there's quite a bit of bulk involved, not all of it even fitting on my camera here, so I can give you a sneak peek of that. Whoop, there it is. Secondly, because I haven't done this many ships in one go for quite some time, so I'm very excited to kind of get back into the swing of things and bring you this huge Clone Wars, specifically the first Battle of Geonosis update today. So I have these new ships here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 new ships and 1 redesign, and I'll be comparing and contrasting to the older one and kind of going through the reasons of why I redesigned it and what's better about the new one, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So before any of you guys ask, instructions for this are a no-no, mainly because the design as it currently exists, I'm not confident to distribute those widely because I'm not sure that it wouldn't just fall over on your shelf if you had it there for more than a day and had a slight breeze come through. So that's something that if I ever do get around to instructions for it, it'll be a little bit more, a little bit redesigned, a little bit less accurate to maybe the source material, but a lot more stable, particularly around the middle and particularly around the bottom there with those legs. So I'll get into all that when I talk about this ship specifically, but this guy right here is one of my favorite designs that I've done in a long time. This is the the SPHA-T, I guess, the SPH-AT. It's a giant cannon on legs. I really like that one, and I will be doing instructions for it. And these ones right here, you can just kind of look at and see how to build them, so not really a huge need for that. So yeah, before, I just wanted to get that out of the way before we dive in and take a look at the ships, and then I will be placing them back over in the fleet in their home setting over there, and we'll be taking a look at kind of the complete collection with these new additions. So stick around to the end and let's kind of get a look at the whole thing because it's been a little while. Alright, so let's dive in and look at each of the ships, specifically starting with the smallest first, the Hailfire redesign. Okay, so beginning with my Hailfire Droid here, this is something that I've had in the fleet for a long time, and this is what it looked like before. And I did caveat when I initially made this that it is oversized, but that I really couldn't think of a better way at the time to get this nice wheel effect in here, because these 4 wide tires seem like the best way to go. And so when the Wakanda sets, the Black Panther sets started coming out and they gave us these new ring pieces, I was like, oh, that would make a good redesign for the Hailfire. It's a lot more size accurate, and it's actually a legal technique because it has a proper actual bar holder here in the bottom, which is where the minifig is designed to hold it, versus this tire piece, which is kind of just jammed in here illegally and has been damaging my pieces for all of this time. So this is a much preferable design, not only because of the obvious, better scaling to everything else in the fleet, but also because there's no stress happening here and nothing illegal is going on. This center piece here is done with a lipstick with the red lipstick part on the end, which I really like, and it just fits in there really nicely. I've switched out the missile platforms to be roller skate pieces instead of these binocular pieces because I just think they scale better. They just have a lot of visual detail in those that the binocular pieces don't necessarily have as much of. So yeah, the other thing is this had to be built into the stand with these clips, again kind of illegally sandwiched in here just to get it to somewhat resemble something that is able to stand, and this can stand on its own, though it does like to tip forward as you saw, but it can just balance there and it's very nice. So yeah, I'm really a fan of this little design, and I think that the accurate scaling of it is just going to make it, it's just kind of been refreshed, and it'll make it interesting for me to look at again when it's amongst the rest of the fleet. And I really enjoy this, I really enjoy that for this. I really enjoy this design for that reason. My goodness, I cannot speak today. So yeah, that is the new Hailfire Droid. It's just a handful of pieces, and I really like it, and I think that it works very well. And I can attach something to the back here to kind of affix it to a stand if I want to, if it does become a pain with it falling over all the time like it's doing right now, which I'm kind of exaggerating, but yeah, I may end up figuring out a way to attach it to a stand because it is possible. But yeah, so for now, there is the new Hailfire Droid. Next up we have the Geonosian Starfighter. This is another one of those really tiny really simple ones. You know, the build ended up being simple, but figuring out how to achieve all of the shapes that went into this was not simple at all. But it literally just ended up being 3 clips stacked on top of each other, 2 magic wands, and then a trans clear tile on the top for the canopy, and very, very simple. But yeah, I think that, you know, the kind of pronged look of this, I think it's captured relatively well by what I have here. I think it scales fairly well. It is the right length, so that's all correct, but I think the only thing is the canopy is probably a little bit large. I could just leave it off, and you could you know, use your imagination that the stud right there represents the canopy, but I don't know, I just prefer it with the canopy on. It's a little bit exaggerated, but I don't mind it. But yeah, this is one of those that was seen ever so briefly in Attack of the Clones, but like everything else in that movie, it's been turned into toys and official LEGO sets over the years. So, you know, it's something that fans are fairly familiar with. I don't think we even really saw it again in the Clone Wars show, although I could be mistaken, but I don't remember seeing it. This is one of those that I definitely recall seeing on shelves and thinking like, huh, I wonder why this ship is warranting a LEGO set when it was seen so briefly. But it is very cool looking. The kind of 2-pronged design there is very unique and very kind of Geonosian in its appearance, so I do appreciate that. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about this very simple little fighter, although I am happy to have a little bit more representation of the Geonosian kind of battle, and just adding this to the collection is a good way to do that. So there we go, there is the Geonosian Starfighter. And here we have Count Dooku's Solar Sailer, which is always a mouthful and hard for me to say. And this one was seen again at the end of Attack of the Clones. It's what Dooku jumps into at the end of his fight with Yoda when he realizes he can't win, and he just skedaddles out of there. And then once he's in orbit, this whole front section here kind of fans out. All of these, this sort of pronged area here opens up, and then a massive solar sail emerges from this, and Count Dooku flies, apparently under the just the power of the sails alone, all the way back to Coruscant to have a secret rendezvous with his master. So this one was definitely got a little bit more screen time in terms of being something that's memorable. I don't think we've ever seen another sail-powered spacecraft like that in Star Wars, as far as I recall. And it's a really cool idea. It's based on a real concept that exists here on Earth in the real world, or not on Earth, but for space travel. And it's something that was used in the show For All Mankind as well. They deployed a solar sail in that show, and I thought that was very cool. So yeah, I really like that concept. Unfortunately, for my one, I don't have the sail represented because it is massive. In order to harvest the kind of energy that you need to actually pull a spacecraft through space, you need a absolutely gigantic sail. And I just simply don't have the room to put that in my display table. It would take up basically half the space for where I have, you know, currently, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 other ships, just to have the strings and the whole kind of rigging that goes out, and then that huge sail. So it is a really huge thing, and it's a little bit cumbersome. So I've opted to go with a sails, you know, unfurled, or a sails, I guess, furled look, where it's just the ship itself, and I think it looks perfectly fine. I think there was an advent calendar build of this that was fairly similar, although I haven't looked at it. I should go check. But this one just relies on some ingot pieces for those side detail parts right there, and then a single 1x4 brick here with the studs on all sides in the brown to just give it that look of the little bit of brown underneath the back side of this door section right here, which is kind of how it should look. And then also obviously to give you the studs necessary to plug in all the wings and things. The cockpit is just very simple there with a you know, single trans clear stud. And in the back here, I'm very proud of this area because there's a little door that kind of comes down and a ramp that extends out for Dooku to board the thing and his little droid as well. And just using this lever piece with the lever inverted, I think is a cool way to represent that opening, and I'm very happy with that. So yeah, I think that worked out really well. The underside here, I did build it asymmetrically, just purely for the sake of attaching a stand. So I just gave myself a single stud down here to attach to, which I think was a very smart way to not have to kind of bulk up anything else to attach a stand to this. I just simply plug it into the bottom, and I'm very happy with that. So yeah, this is a really recognizable one. Again, this is the kind of exact right size that you would want to see for this. It is 5 studs long, which is the correct length at my scale. And yeah, this is one that I think I'll be happy with for a good long time. So there you go. there is Count Dooku's Solar Sailer. And next up we have the SPH-AT, the SPHA-T, and this is absolutely such a cool design and such a weird and interesting and unique piece of Star Wars lore. This bizarre 12-legged, little tank here is kind of reminiscent of the massive craft that they use to transport the space shuttles out to the launch pad in real life. Because it's got just so much support underneath here, but of course this we're using 12 legs instead of treaded design. But I think it looks really, really cool. And then it's all to serve the purpose of having this platform on the back, which carries a gigantic turbo laser on it. And we see this used to pretty good effect in the movie, where a bunch of these all concentrate their fire and take down one of the droid control ball ships. The core ship is what it's called. And that was a very memorable scene as well, because the thing, the way that it slowly is ascending, and then it just kind of hits a wall and then just kind of comes crashing back down and creates that giant dust cloud. Very cool stuff. And yeah, it's the second instance in the movie of characters giving very basic military advice, like concentrate all your fire on one target, that ends up being very effective, which, good for them. So good for you, Yoda. I've represented this in its firing configuration here using some of these unique pieces here. I have the crystalline element and then the kind of swirly, I think it's supposed to be initially a spider web, like for Spider-Man type of piece, recolored here in the trans clear blue, which I think it looks really, really nice. Because you want to see the fire coming out of that giant cannon, right? I mean, that's one of the coolest parts of it. The design itself is absolutely just very densely packed with detail, and I tried to be as faithful and accurate as humanly possible. But what's really cool is I initially had built the cannon for this. This was the size of the cannon that I was mistakenly going off of, because I was paying attention to the official measurements from the kind of Star Wars databank that had this ship at 140 meters long, and thankfully I showed a preview of this over to my folks on Discord, and user Tritix pointed out to me there that this measurement has been debunked in the Star Wars community as simply being impossible and outlandish, because it's just way too big. And having built it at this scale, I could see myself that I was like, wow, this thing really is huge. Because if you look at it on screen, it's seen alongside a lot of other vehicles whose size we are aware of, and it definitely is not this big. So thankfully, I only built the cannon, didn't get too far into it, and waste a bunch of my time making a gigantic SPH-AT, only to have to come back and do it all over again. So thank you very much, Tritix. You saved me a bunch of time there, and I appreciate it greatly. So yeah, let's get in and look at some of the close-up details here. I really love this cannon design. I mean, the actual ship design. I think I tried to capture it as well as I possibly could at this scale. I'm using to good effect the newest parts available. So I have like the dark gray ingot. I have this cool kind of double bar assembly here. And then using in the back side here to attach the actual dish, I'm using 2 of those rounded stud with bar off to the back side there to kind of center up that attachment point. And then the actual like body portion of it, there was a really cool model that somebody made, a physical like prop replica of this, where they had taken really detailed photos and gotten kind of a look at every single side of the vehicle, because in the movie we really only get to see kind of this angle a little bit, and then maybe like this. So somebody online did a ton of exhaustive research and built a really accurate prop replica there that could actually be used for filming, I think. You could just stick it in a soundstage and shoot it, and it would look real. So very cool and massive props to that person. I will leave a link down in the description to the actual model that I'm referring to. So yeah, I was able to take a look at that and get a lot of accurate detailing that I would just never have known before, like these little vents that exist down in here, this little kind of cowling here that swoops up and into this back fin shape, this little platform, the way that this platform sits. So like this has been installed kind of after the fact, and it sits off to the side here, and it kind of gives it that interesting off-kilter look, which I didn't even realize initially was part of the design. I actually thought this cannon was centered up when I first saw this. So it was just a really helpful thing, and it's one of the great things about the model making community is the more people do, the more we all benefit from each other's knowledge and wisdom and research and technique building. So yeah, it's really cool. All the little details, like this little self-defense cannon off to the side, these little sensor dishes, one which is, or a sensor like antenna, one of which is off to an angle and one of which sticks straight up. All those little details were really, really fun to capture and would not really have been possible, and also the shape of all of this cowling and stuff down here without the exhaustive efforts of other model makers. So yeah, very, very excited about that. So the cannon can move up and down, of course, as you would like to be able to angle this to, you know, be able to concentrate your fire, right? You need to be able to all aim in the same place. So I think that works out really well. I mean, this is about the limit of the motion right here, but it can come down to completely flat, which I really like. So it just kind of rests on the backside of the ship here. This cockpit area, or this sort of bridge, I think works out really well with just a handful of trans yellow pieces there. I have a little indication of the Red Republic striping in here, which I really like that I was able to squeeze that in there. And of course we have the 12 legs underneath. So these two are kind of free to rotate just by virtue of the design, because they're attached in here to kind of continue this sort of nice arrangement where the legs sort of get narrower as they get further to the back. And in order to do that, I just had to arrange this with a Technic brick in here with the single hole in the middle, and the Technic half pin, which I'm using to attach the legs, doesn't have any friction, so that leg does just kind of freely move around. But it's not too bad. You know, once you set it, you kind of put it down, no big deal really. And I just love the look of these 12 legs. It just gives it such a unique, almost like insect-like or crustacean-like kind of a feel to it, and I think it's very, very cool. So yeah, this is a really, really fun one to research and to develop. The final size that I kind of settled on here is something around 55 meters. It should probably be a little bit smaller if we're going by kind of official numbers that are given for other vehicles, but I just wanted to scale it to the fleet that I have now and kind of make it work with what I saw on screen. So I ended up scaling it up just ever so slightly, and I think that it works out really well and works in its favor, because it looks just right when I place it next to an ATTE or some of the other ships that we saw next to it on screen. It works really, really well. So yeah, when I show you all of those in a little bit, you'll be able to see what I mean and see if you agree with how it scales. So yeah, really, really, really pleased with this one, and I'm definitely making instructions for this because it is such a cool design, and it's something that, you know, I'm sure a lot of Clone Wars geeks are going to want to get their hands on this, because it is something we don't see a lot of representation for, but it was a very memorable and cool scene from an otherwise not so great movie. So so we have to celebrate the good where we find it. So yeah, that is the SPH-AT, or the SPHA-T as I like to call it, and let's move on to the next one. Okay, and here is the big one for this grouping here. This is the Hardcell-Class Interstellar Transport, and as you can see, it's absolutely massive, really, really tall, and it's accurate. You know, like all of my other vehicles, I've sized it as accurately as I possibly can to the remaining or to the other fleet, and it is now the tallest vehicle that I have in the fleet, so that's very cool. The other thing I was thinking of to bring some verticality to my ships, because I have a lot of long and wide ships, but I don't have anything that's really tall. I was thinking about doing the floating kind of gangster hideout from Solo. I believe it's called the Last Light or the First Light. I forget exactly, but it's it's the ship that Not Vision uses to get around the galaxy and evade law enforcement. It's a big, tall, black thing. But I thought this would be a cooler one to tackle because I really wanted to do more Clone Wars stuff, and it's such a unique and interesting shape, and it's probably a lot more memorable, I think, than that ship is, because that particular thing is really hard to kind of identify and pick out the features of on screen. It's black and gold, and it's very tricky to kind of pick out the details from the shots that we do get of it. So I decided to go with this guy, and I'm glad that I did. I think it's a really, really cool design, and I was able to capture it enough to my satisfaction, but not to the point where it would be suitable to be a Lego set that I would distribute, only because the building techniques that I used are different enough to my usual and deviate away from my kind of strength standards and things like that. But I am really happy with all of the detailing and the way that it looks. I'm going to kind of spin it around and give you guys a look at it. I also want to go handheld so you can kind of see from some different angles, not from just this single angle, what this thing looks like. So let's switch over to that and I'll give you guys the full tour. Okay, so starting down here at the bottom, so this landing gear doesn't really take any weight at all. It just helps to somewhat balance the ship out so that it isn't just standing on this little leg right here of this pillar. So this pillar is actually a part of the design. It's sort of like a lift that comes down, like a little platform that lowers down, it looks like, and takes the people up into the ship from below. And so I thought I definitely would need to use that for stability, for you know, to balance out with these legs right here, because this thing is so heavy, it's so big, and it just, yeah, you can see it towers all the way up here, and I just knew that it would need that extra little bit of support. And I didn't realize that the entire thing would be sitting, the weight of it would be sitting on just the central leg, but it worked out. I have a Technic beam or a Technic axle that runs up through here in the middle, meets up with and links up to a second Technic axle that runs all the way up to here, and then there's a third one that runs up here that kind of connects in this section of the you know, kind of the Fabergé egg portion of it. And then that's all just kind of sitting on top of this platform. I'll take that off a little bit later and show you how all that's done. But literally this is just placed onto an axle to guide it into place, and it's free floating. So the reason I did that is because I really wanted to be able to line up where the engines are on the sides here and here. The legs sit in the middle of that, and then this kind of little, whatever detail this is, sits in the middle of that. And then up at the top, we then have the offset again with the three details sitting outside of that. So it's kind of like constantly switching orientation, and that was really, really difficult to figure out how to do that. And one of the ways that I got around kind of the tricky math of it was to just have this section be placed on top. So yeah, I tried to squeeze in as much fun piping detail and little cool bits of what you can imagine to be various nozzles and hoses and pipes and who knows what, because this whole section is very dense with that in all of the source material. I did use these half-cylinder pieces to kind of get a lot of the engines in there for free, so to speak, and that worked out really well, but I didn't have enough to do the entire run, so I ended up using a couple that have stickers on. I ended up using these single you know, 4x4 pieces in here for one of the engines, and I also ended up using this light bluish gray one, but it has this cool sticker on it. It's a really old piece. I'm not sure exactly where that one comes from, but I thought that it matched up well enough with the stickering in there, and so I decided to use that as well. And I just kind of extended down the gray down into here to make it look a bit more purposeful. But yeah, I think this whole section works out really well, and it kind of gives you that visual impact of just all of that like tubing and mechanical stuff down here, which is kind of the first thing that you see when you look at this, I think, other than the big overall kind of eggy shape of the top part here. So moving up to the top, I just have some basic kind of detailing in here for some of this greebling that comes out from the center. I just wanted to represent a little bit of that. There's more in the actual design, and it kind of continues all the way out to the edges, but I just wanted to have something in here to kind of show that off, because it is a really interesting and unique design, the way that all of this just sort of fans out from the middle and then goes down the sides and presumably continues on the bottom as well. The bottom of mine is very plain, if I could give you an angle under there. So it just, you know, does its job. It's got just some plating and things under there to keep everything secure. So yeah, then moving up to the egg portion, so you can see here we have a plate built section here. So this is a large plated structure that's kind of built to be, you know, continue the curvature of the dome or the cone around. And then we have these sections in here with these large pre-made slopes, which I got these from my old Hogwarts build, the microscale one. These were used for some of the towers, and then I just pulled those out and got them in here for that. I think that works really well. And then I try to be as accurate as possible with the shaping on these little side details here, which are just such a tricky, interesting, weird shape. But yeah, there's, you know, 3 of those, and they're identical on either side. And then I have the occasional spot here where I'm just giving you some little bits of extra visual detail, a little bit of light gray and some black and things, which is something that I saw with official illustrations and things of this vehicle. There's a lot of little spots of interesting little kind of somethings that I thought it would be fun to just kind of break up this gray in here with a few little bits here and there. So yeah, I think that works out really well. And then we move up to the top here and we have this tan stripe, which runs right the way around. And I, again, try to vary up the colors a little bit. I brought in some hints of yellow, gray, and tan and dark tan just to kind of vary it up. And then we have these really interesting 3 towers that kind of stick up from here that just sort of completes the look of the top of this. So again, try to be really, really faithful with the shaping in there and everything to get that to be as close as humanly possible. One of these is coming out though. Get that. So yeah, really happy with how all of this turned out, because I think it just captures the overall look of the ship so well. Sorry that it's really hard to get a full look of it on camera. I'll try to get back as far as I can and give you a look down. There you go. So you can see some of my other mess off to the side, my other builds and things, but yeah, there it is. So yeah, I think this worked out really well. The only thing is, like I said, the kind of wobbliness, the fact that this all comes to such a fine point right here, which again, I did try to bulk up as much as possible using some relatively new techniques, like using these inkwell pieces that plug into upside down into these 1x2 rounded plates with the hole in them to just give as much strength to this connection point in the middle here as possible. I tried to really round out the bottom here with all of these dish and quarter round pieces that have been sort of fanned out into this large kind of rounded under section here. And yeah, I think it just captures the look really well, and I'm just really proud of it. So the only thing that I think is a little bit not flattering on this to look at is that there's a little bit of gapping right in here where the slopes meet up with the plates, and that would probably be one of the first things I would change if I was to redo this or make it instruction worthy. Is I would probably replace these large slopes with additional plated sections that would be able to meet up more cleanly with these portions here, and just find a way to kind of cover up those gaps. But I really wanted to use these because I don't have much use for these in other builds and things, and they just seem so perfect for this large cone shape that I just felt like I had to figure out a way to use them in here. But yeah, let me peel off this top section and I'll kind of show you like what I was mentioning about how this is all attached. So yeah, give me 1 second. So there you go, it is off, and now you can see in here, this is the interior of this, and this is how I've done it. So I have these interesting 3-sided pieces in here that came with a few different sets a few years back, and I think I had 4 of them in my inventory, and they all went into this section right here. So basically the part that goes, you can see the pink section. Sorry, I'm kind of holding this and can't really point. Actually, let me put this down. Is it okay? It's arrived. Okay, so the pink section is one part that goes off to these outer sides here, and then the purple section, which is behind it, is a separate one of these plates, kind of replicating the same structure with the plates that go out. But then that connects to these outer larger plates here, but they're actually not connected to each other at all. So they're just kind of sitting in place, and then the single Technic axle from here runs right the way through both of those and just holds them in place so that they just sit like they should. So it's a really interesting, weird configuration. And let me see if I can place this back here. And there you go. And then it just all kind of comes together and works. And I'm not worried about this like falling over in my own house, even though I do live in a place where there are earthquakes. But I'm hoping that it's sturdy enough that it will just stay in place. But that's not good enough for me for when it comes to instructions and things. So I know people do often say like, just do it anyway, we don't care. But I care, because I want to be able to have the absolute quality seal of approval on every single one of my mocks. And when somebody buys a mock and builds it and it falls apart on them, that I think does a disservice to the entire LEGO mock making community, because it gives people less confidence in buying and building other mocks. So, when I put something out, you can be sure that it has my seal of approval in terms of quality, building techniques, and all of that stuff. So, yeah, that's just my little PSA on this, because I know I will get asked about it, and I just wanted to kind of head that off. So yeah, if you guys absolutely love this ship though, and you want to see a version of it that exists, you can still let me know, and I will consider it for future when when I'm trying to think of ways to build new interesting techniques. I might be able to apply something to this to make it where it is sturdy enough to sell as a set. But that's for another long down the line kind of a day. So yeah. So yeah, that's about all I have to say about the Hardcell-Class Transport, the Hardcell-Class Interstellar Transport. That's a hard thing to say. And yeah, I'm really happy to have this one in the collection, and especially to be able to have that height that kind of really brings a different dimension, literally, to the fleet. So let me go ahead and just do a little kind of overview of my whole Battle of Geonosis collection, and then I'll go ahead and place all of these back in their spots in the fleet, and we can take a look. Alright, so I just brought out some of my kind of CIS forces over on this side, and then some of my Republic forces on that side, so you can kind of get a look and feel for how they all fit together. I didn't realize that the Juggernaut was so close in size with the SPHA-T. That's kind of cool to see. And also just the kind of overall bulk of the LAAT transport, or LAATC. My names are getting blurry after all these years. But yeah, the ship that drops the ATTEs into battle. It's a really big, bulky boy there, so very, very cool to see. And just brought out my MTT and a couple of other things as well. And yeah, I think this is really starting to look like a battle, a force right here that could really go into battle. And what's really cool to see is that the LAAT gunship here, again under the advisement of Anakin Skywalker, aimed at the weak spot of the ship right here, right above the fuel cells, exactly where you would expect to aim at a thing that has a choke point like this. So good job, Anakin. Again, you stated the obvious. You and Yoda are two of a kind. And the battle was won, kind of. I mean, it was not a victory, as Yoda said, but there you go. So yeah, here's all my Clone Wars stuff, and I'm really, really happy with it. I mean, I know all of this wasn't exactly necessarily present. This ATDP Walker was not present at this particular battle, but you get the idea. I just wanted to give you a look at the kind of overall Clone Wars stuff. So yeah, let's migrate these over to the rest of the fleet, and I'll just give you an overview of how it all looks together now that these are done. And so here is my Hardcell-Class Interstellar Transport, taking up the entire vertical space that I set up here, and just coming over the top of my little white barrier that I set up. So that's very, very cool. Definitely like to see the kind of boundary breaking there of these very massive ships. Let me just move this guy a little bit because I feel like he's getting a little bit lost. This is the one from the 2D Clone Wars show. Yeah, I think that looks great. I think the SPHA-T looks really nice in that position as well, and especially with the beam firing out there, I think that really makes it dynamic, makes it feel very awesome. Yeah, really like seeing all these new ships. So I've placed the Dooku Solar Sailer under here in the shade, ironically, because it needs some sunlight. So there you go. And then we have where is it? The Hailfire Droid there, the Geonosian Starfighter right there. So everybody's back in place. You can see here from Old Republic all the way down through. Man, this thing is too large. Creating all this shade, I gotta figure out something to do about that. Maybe I'll add some low-level lighting that just shoots up under here. But yeah, Old Republic, one High Republic ship so far. I want to add a long beam, but I'm not exactly sure how long those are. But there's a cruiser, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Clone Wars, 2D Clone Wars, Episode 3. We got Bad Batch. We got Andor over here. I have my my Rebel section, my Solo section, going down through. This is still Rebels. Then we have Kenobi, my one Kenobi ship. Gotta again do more of those. Rogue One. Finally, original trilogy, Empire Strikes Back, New Hope, down into Return of the Jedi, Resistance, Mandalorian, and finally the sequel trilogy. Man, just so many ships. This is definitively, I'm going to say it, this is the largest collection of ships from Star Wars made at the same scale in Lego ever done. I am waiting to be challenged on that. If anybody has a bigger one, or if they've seen a bigger one, or has a more complete representation of Star Wars ships at this scale, I want to see it. I want to know, because you know, that's something to behold. All right, that's about going to do it for today, guys. I'm just kind of looking for my own amusement at the collection here. I'm just so pleased with it. Gosh darn, this is awesome. So yeah, I'm gonna get to work on some more ships and bring you some more mocks and videos. The instructions for the SPHA-T will be out pretty soon. It's not a gigantic thing, so it won't take me very long to do. And yeah, that's about gonna do it for me for today, guys. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks for not requesting that I give you instructions for this, because I know you're not going to. No one's gonna request that now. And I'll see you on the next video. So thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more stuff, and may the Force be with you.